quick, sleek, stylish, and we won't destroy your society. Well, for now anyways. Ikner. Trust me, bitch. Dr. Doom. This is the one I'm super passionate about that we're going to spend the most time talking about today. So when it comes to the situation with Doom, if you guys have been following, which you probably have because the news has been everywhere, they basically have casted Robert Downey Jr. to play Dr. Doom in the upcoming Avengers movies. Now, it's a whole thing. Because basically, like, what we're talking about here is the idea that the Russo brothers, who have been brought back on to direct this film, have confirmed that Iron Man plays an important part of Doctor Doom's story. Now, what does that actually mean? What does that mean? That's a question that basically kind of is a spoiler, I guess. And it's actually interesting that they even brought it up, to be honest, because it's like, okay, well, I mean, you kind of basically told us that Iron Man's returning because Iron Man's dead currently, right? But the theory is, which has been like a long-standing theory on the internet, is that essentially Doctor Doom's going to somehow use the multiverse to take over Iron Man's body and then use that body somehow to do Doctor Doom things, whatever those Doctor Doom things are. And to me, it's not very Doom-like. It doesn't feel like something that Doom would do. I'm a Doom fan. I actually have read a lot of his adventures in the comic world, and I spend a lot of time watching nerd videos. And, you know, I don't see Doom pulling the deception card as like his play here. It doesn't feel like a move that is like logical in terms of like how he moves as a villain. It's not like something that like I see playing out logically as a Doom character. But I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do. And then secondly, basically the fact that they're even bringing Robert Downey Jr. into this as apparently a possessed version of Iron Man or whatever suggests that he's returning. Now, they've already kind of announced a while back, I'm not even sure if people remember this, that they were actually planning on bringing Robert Downey Jr. back into the MCU. They said this a while back ago. It was a very quick little blurb. And what I thought they were going to do, which is something I say every time I talk about these videos, is that it should have been about the 5 years in between the snap and Endgame. And you could have had Iron Man 4 just focus on that, would have been fire, but they didn't do that. Apparently they're bringing him back as Dr. Doom. Whatever, dude. Whatever, my dude. It feels like a cash grab. They understand that there's money to be made. They understand that, hey, we're going to get this money somehow. So let's bring back our most expensive asset, but also our most profitable asset as well in terms of Robert Downey Jr. Just for the sake of getting those people in the seats. Because people will go see this and go see what's going to happen with this film. Like, I'm going to go see it just out of curiosity. But the thing is about it, it feels a little lazy. But it also might be a red herring. There's a couple of things I think about here when it comes to this. Thing number one is when they announced Robert Downey Jr., how they actually did it, which I don't think anybody actually even picked up on, but I picked up on it because I'm a nerd. When they announced the scene with Robert Downey Jr. becoming at Comic-Con, when they were saying that he was going to be Dr. Doom, they actually had multiple Dr. Dooms lined up. Believe it or not. If you remember correctly, there were multiple Dr. Dooms lined up, and he stepped out and revealed himself as Robert Downey Jr. Now, obviously that could be like, oh, Doom bots, right? These are just Doom bots. But we're talking about the multiverse saga here. So I actually think it might have been a bit of a clue in terms of what they're actually trying to do here. Another thing that I'm thinking about, and this is as my storytelling theory brain starts to move, I think about the idea of the fact that they've announced that Chris Evans is also returning. I think that they've said that Doctor Strange is returning and a few other main characters, but Chris Evans is the most interesting one because people are theorizing that he's going to be returning as Nomad or like evil Captain America or something like that, which is possible. But another theory, kind of attaching back to what I was saying, is what if he also appears as Doctor Doom? And what if it's a situation where we're seeing all these multiverse versions of Doctor Doom where he is actually possessing all the different Avengers, right? He possesses all different Avengers and creates his own version of Dark Avengers by possessing multiversal versions of the Avengers. That's just a theory that I think will actually go pretty hard. Now, I don't think now if it happens, hit me up, because obviously like my theory game is crazy, but it's something that I've noticed. Like it all comes down to how they announced Robert Downey Jr. Like there's multiple Robert Downey Jr.'s there. And it's almost kind of like a big red herring in the sense that I definitely think that we'll probably end up getting a new Doom who is not Robert Downey Jr. after Secret Wars, when it's all said and done. Like when they reset the universe or whatever they decide to do, might get a Doctor Doom that's different. We actually might even see this Doctor Doom in the Fantastic Four film, but it seems as if though Doctor Doom is actually not a focal point in this film, which might be a good decision, because they got to let this cook for a little bit. They got to let it cook for a little bit. I think there's a lot to kind of unpack here in terms of how they want to present the story. And Doom is a massively huge character. We're talking about Doctor Doom, who's like one of the most important characters in the MCU period. So there's a lot of pressure to like kind of make that work. And I think that, I don't know, we'll see. We'll see if they stick this landing. I have trust in the Russos, but part of this comes down to the fact that Feige is getting back involved with this because of how bad their last movie, The Electric State, is doing. So currently The Electric State is one of the lowest ranked films of the year, getting terrible reviews. It had something like a $300 million budget, which is crazy. Like when I saw the trailer for it, I just kind of have a vibe when it comes to certain actors. And this is not like a knock to those actors, but at the same time, it kind of is. Like when I see certain actors in certain roles, it's just like, no. So when I saw Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt in this film as the lead characters of this film, where they're doing this whole journey stuff, I knew it was going to flop. And I think a lot of it does come down to the casting of those two characters, like specifically Millie Bobby Brown, who has not proven her acting chops, and Chris Pratt, who is like a very polarizing actor. Like either you love Chris Pratt and everything you do, or you're just kind of like, Chris Pratt is what it is. But my point is, before I go on that whole tangent about the Electric State, that movie's getting terrible reviews. And so now Feige's kind of like stepping back into the arena, and I guess he's going to be a lot more hands-on with Secret Wars and Doomsday. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out, because I think at the end of the day, like there's way too much pressure on this film. This might be like the make or break of the MCU, honestly. Like I think that if Doomsday is not at least a 9 out of 10 on the general consensus, it will flop and it might destroy the MCU. They'll keep pushing, and Secret Wars might literally be like a death rattle. And they might have to cool out for like 5-6 years while they reboot with the X-Men or whoever, because that's kind of how important this film is in terms of like the level of it. We will see though. We will see. I'm excited about it. I have faith in the MCU. I'm a big MCU fan, obviously, because I made the first topic of this episode about it. But it is what it is. We'll see. Moving on. So y'all saw the topic, so we'll talk about it. James Bond. So I'm not sure if you guys have been paying attention with James Bond and like that franchise and how it's been going down, but it's kind of crazy, and it's kind of a sign of the times in terms of this oligarchy that's kind of been building around us. So I'm going to try and paraphrase this and keep this as tight as possible in terms of the history of it leading up to this point. But essentially the creators of James Bond, who have owned the franchise and had the creative control over it since the beginning, sold it to Amazon a while back. Part of that deal kind of included that they would keep the creative control of the vision of Bond moving forward. And basically it's kind of overseen by this chick named Barbara Broccoli, who is the one who puts all the pieces in place for Bond. Essentially, when Bezos acquired the Amazon franchise, he made some suggestions about how they should move forward. And that got back to Barbara Broccoli, who was just like, this guy is stupid. These ideas are terrible. Ain't no one trying to hear this. And so it ended up being a situation where not Barbara Broccoli, Jeff Bezos is like, I'm going to destroy this woman and I'm going to take her out somehow, some way, I'm gonna make that happen. And I guess since that point, that's basically what he did, is where he kind of put pieces in place. I think he offered her like a crap ton of money, all this stuff to kind of like put her in a position to no longer be involved with the Bond franchise. And so that's kind of what it led to where Amazon now has complete control of the Bond franchise, and they're doing all kinds of stuff. They're talking about doing like a Moneypenny prequel, all kinds of stuff. We'll probably have like a multiverse Bond. We'll probably have like a gay Bond. It's gonna get crazy. It's gonna get crazy. And recently, when they asked Pierce Brosnan, who is actually one of the previous Bond people, what he thought, he was kind of like, we need to keep Bond basically white and British. Basically, we ain't trying to have no DEI James Bond running around. Now, you can go look up the interview, because I tried to find the exact quote, but that's kind of like what the vibe is about the interview that he said, where he was like, we got to keep it traditional. We got to pay homage to the Bond previous franchise, et cetera, so forth. But to me, I think it's funny because it's literally just like, this is DEI falling apart in real time, to where we ain't getting no black Bond. I think there was a point in time where people were saying that Idris Elba was probably the best choice, which I actually, at a certain point in time in his career, I think he would have been great, like earlier on. But honestly, like now, I think he's too famous. And I think that's like the secret behind like the Bond franchise, is that it kind of needs to be somebody who is like not super duper famous. Like we don't need like a Tom Cruise level person playing Bond. You need someone who's still on the come up, who is going to basically cement their career and become A-lister because they became Bond. Like Daniel Craig, Pierce Brosnan, even Sean Connery, all these people became A-list celebrities because they did Bond. So, people are saying Aaron Taylor Johnson. Sure, maybe, we'll see. I don't know. I think he's fine, but like, I think he's a little bit generic. I want him to get weird with it. You know what I'm saying? If you just got a brand new franchise and one of the greatest franchises of all time, let's get weird with it, man. I'm actually cool with the idea of there being like different Bonds, different types of Bonds. I think that the Skyfall franchise or movie kind of blew it, in the sense that they're the ones that was a movie that kind of cemented James Bond as an actual family with a last name. I believe, like, I think it was that movie where he goes and visits his grave, and it's like his dad, and it's like last name Bond, and it's like, you ruined it. You ruined it, because it would have been a lot cooler if it was like Bond is a code name, right? And that it could be applied to anybody, 007, 00, whoever. That name James Bond is like an alias that is attached to you when you become an agent in the system. That was a theory that went around for a very long time as these movies were coming out. But then, yeah, with Skyfall, I think it was Skyfall, they were just like, nah, that's not the case. He's actually like, that's his real name, and these are his parents, and it's like, ruined. But they could reboot. You know what I'm saying? They own the franchise now, so they can just restart the whole thing and start from the jump. We'll see what happens. I don't know, but I'm kind of excited though, because I actually really enjoy Bond movies. They're usually pretty action packed and pretty good. The last couple were fine, but I don't know. You guys let me know what you think about that, because I think that when it comes to James Bond and being in the hands of Amazon, it's going to be either like the utmost fires of fire, or it's going to be trash. Because that's basically how Amazon works. Either it's like super duper fire, or it's trash. Either it's like The Boys or Invincible, or it's like Lord of the Rings, which is mid at best. Anyways, moving on the topics. We're talking next about the Xbox handheld. So Xbox is doing a lot of weird stuff lately. First of all, they came out and they're like, yo, so we're probably not even going to drop like another system. Like we might drop one. Like if so, it's going to be like some PC type of vibe where it's like attached to your TV, like a computer. Like it's going to be like a console friendly PC. It's not going to be like a game system. I don't even know what that even means. Like, I'm not sure if that means you can like do like FL Studio or something. I don't even know what that means in terms of like what Xbox trying to do. But they're like switching up their strategy in terms of like how they're approaching the gaming market. One of the things they recently announced is the Xbox handheld. Now, this photo that I put up is not the actual photo of the Xbox handheld, rather a photo that I found online of someone who designed what it would look like. And to me, I think it's honestly like probably one of the best decisions they can make is to get into the handheld game. Like I've skipped the last two Xbox generations, and it's I like Xbox. Like I came up on Xbox One and Xbox 360. Those are like my gems and part of like some of my favorite game systems that I ever come up with. But at some point in time, they got weird, and I think it got weird with the names. I think that was for me like the red flag for me, where I was like, this company doesn't really know what they're doing. When they named their third Xbox system Xbox One, then they started doing Xbox Series X and Xbox X9s, 3, 9, 4, and all this weird stuff. And it's like, dude, why can't you just do what PlayStation does and just do Xbox 1, 2, 3, or 360, 720, 1080? Y'all had it set up perfectly with the Xbox 360, but for some reason y'all decided to go back to Xbox One and get weird with it. I don't know. I don't know what y'all are doing over at Microsoft, but I digress. The point is that Xbox has been moving just weird. And one of the things that they actually said is that they're actually looking to have PlayStation put their exclusives on their systems, and they want to make games for PlayStation. So they're trying to just be like, they break down all barriers, create this last system, and I guess 2027 is what they're shooting for. That's going to be like this PC that's like also a console that attaches to your TV. Don't know exactly what that means, but part of their little announcement that they were talking about in this press conference is the fact that they're rolling out a handheld system, and they're actually doing it pretty soon. And like I said, a handheld Xbox system would actually be dope if it had the power of even a 360 or like an Xbox One, and you could play dope games on it. I'm all about it. I would probably actually put myself back into the Microsoft sphere if they did that, especially if it came with Game Pass, because Game Pass is probably the best thing that Xbox has going for them right now. And they got smart about it too, and they're like, okay, well, we're gonna go ahead and put day one games on Game Pass, so y'all will actually play the Game Pass. Because before, when I first had Game Pass, it was just like, this game came out like 4 years ago. I ain't trying to play no 4-year-old game. And they're like, oh, okay, well, we'll put Starfield on there. Okay, bet. So I played Starfield on Game Pass when the day it came out, which, would probably be the only time I would play it. Starfield was fine. One day we'll talk about Starfield, but I digress. The point is that Xbox is kind of looking at the pasture and what it has to offer and their place in it, and realizing that they might need to fall back a little bit because PlayStation and Nintendo are dominating. Switch 2 is going to do crazy numbers. We already know this, if and when it comes out this year. And then you also have Grand Theft Auto 6, which is like kind of like the biggest gaming moment in maybe of all time. It's going to do crazy, insane numbers. They're talking about charging $100 for Grand Theft Auto 6. I don't even know if I'm probably still going to buy it, honestly. It's the most anticipated game of all time, so they could charge whatever and people will buy it. But the part about that is the fact that if they do that, it's going to change and shift the scape and scope of the industry. Games are going to start costing $80, $90, $100 just because Grand Theft Auto got away with it. So get ready for that, because that's how it is for all my gamers out there. But anyways, are you guys excited about the Xbox handheld? I'm curious to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. Will you cop the Xbox handheld if and when it comes out? I think it's a dope idea. We'll see how it is. We'll see how it goes. Anyways, moving on. Let's talk about ASAP Rocky. So ASAP Rockington has been dealing with this case for a minute now. He's basically trying to, I think it was a gun charge. I should have been a lot more prepared for it. But he's been dealing with this gun charge for a minute now, to where if he was convicted, he could have faced 20 years in jail. But recently, I think it was at the time of the shooting, it was like last week, he basically got off. Not guilty on all charges. And the first thing he did was crowd surfed on his wife, who was in the audience. And it's cute. It's adorable. But, when it comes to that situation, I really hope, and I don't know if ASAP Rocky's watching this or not, but it's like, you are now in a different realm of your life. And obviously, like, this situation happened before. Like, you knocked up Rihanna multiple times. Rumor has it she's pregnant again. Different discussion. But at this point in your life, like, you're now raising these kids. You have businesses. You have all this money. You have all these things that are going so well for you. And I pray to God that you hope that you learn a lesson in all this, because this is not the first time that you dealt with this, right? Like, thank God that Donald Trump was around. I hate saying that, but thank God that he was around when you went to jail, when you were in Sweden doing whatever you were doing in Sweden, and you were locked up for however long. that was Trump who got you out. And that's a crazy situation that even happened like that. But my point being is that you keep kind of putting yourself in these situations that could potentially ruin your life forever. And you have one of the most famous and beautiful people on your arm, and you got her pregnant, and now you're running this business and like these companies, and you have an album that people have been waiting on for years now. It was all these, like, say, you have all these things going for you, and you had this hope that you eventually see the light, and we see like a huge mature growth, because A$AP Rocky is actually one of my favorite artists in the hip hop realm. Like, if I have like a personal top 10 list, not based off of accolades or sales or clout or anything like that, just like my personal like list of artists I like to listen to, A$AP Rocky would probably sneak in at 10 or 11. And what's crazy about it is like, this dude has done a lot of crazy stuff to like almost ruin his life, but he gets off by like the thinnest hair. And the situation with this case is another example where he just barely squeaks by and is barely able to, fight for his freedom on this. So, like I said, that was a plea from me directly to A$AP Rocky. Like, I highly doubt that he's going to see this. I don't think he's going to watch my show, but if he does, or if this goes viral or whatever, he happens to see this, please do that, man, because it's important, man. And we need you. We need more strong black leaders around that aren't going to jail for dumb shit. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, I just wanted to get that off. That was what I was talking about. Last but not least, we're going to talk about Tesla. And this will be our last topic before we end these episodes, trying to keep them under 30 minutes. I don't think we're going to hit 30 minutes in this one because I got a lot to say about the situation. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to Tesla right now. So, and even at the time of this recording, when I put this topic on here, this was a week ago, and a lot has changed over the last week. But basically what we're seeing happening is this company imploding right now because of its CEO's actions, which is insane, because when it comes to Tesla, like, it's actually, I'm talking about the actual cars, not the Cybertruck. That's a different topic. The Tesla is actually a great car, and a lot of people that I know drive Teslas because they enjoy the product, and it has all kinds of cool features, and it's trendy, and it's stylish, and it's relatively inexpensive to the point where people want to do that, and it's green, and it's like attracted all these different people who are trying to help the environment, and like it's such a good product on paper, right? It's one of those rare products where like you expect to see great results because of how good it is. But that's the crazy part about it, when you seeing people burn down Teslas in front of dealerships and vandalizing them and doing all kinds of wild stuff with like projectors in the back of Cybertrucks and stuff like that. All because of the owner and the CEO and his antics. And part of me seeing all this makes me fearful, but it also kind of gives me faith, just because I had to be dead ass honest. I've been kind of nervous about how society's been going in terms of like, the potential oligarchy that's building around us right now, and all these things that are happening on a political scale, potential World War III, all these things are happening. And my fear isn't the fact that they're going to happen. My fear is how people are responding to it. And initially, my thought process was like, people don't really give a F anymore, dog. Like, everybody's so apathetic. Everybody's so worried about what they're doing with their own lives that like a nuclear explosion could go down in the next town and people just be like, oh, is it blowing my way? Nope. Okay, cool. Keep it moving. That's kind of how I feel most of this country is right now. Just kind of numb to what's happening. So when I'm seeing the uprising that's kind of happening with like, AOC and Bernie Sanders doing these rallies across the country, and then you're seeing like all these Tesla explosions and terrorism going on with that, which to be straight up honest with you and quite transparent and down the middle like I am, what's happening with these Teslas is a form of terrorism. It's the form of domestic terrorism. And yeah, it might be for whatever side that you're rooting for, whether you're anti-Trump or pro-Trump. The straight and narrow definition of what's happening with these people going around and blowing up these Teslas and destroying them and vandalizing them in the sake of a rebellious nature towards the establishment is literally domestic terrorism. So let's go ahead and establish that before people start hopping on here and be like, well, Just making that clear. It is a form of terrorism. But revolutions in nature are terrorist acts. So if you're going to have a revolution happen, quote unquote, in any type of country or any type of governmental structure, it's going to be seen as terrorism by nature. And I'm wondering if me talking about this is going to get my video demonetized, because YouTube has been extremely sensitive about things I've been talking about in here lately. So if you see this video, please like it and subscribe it so we can get out to the algorithm and do all that. But anyways, back to my point. What we're seeing with Tesla, or at least what we were seeing at one point, was the people responding with the best way they know how, which is like kind of going around and effing stuff up and causing destruction, because that's kind of the American nature. Like, if I don't agree with something, or if I really agree with something, I'm going to destroy it. Like, if my team wins a championship, I'm destroying my city. But if my team loses my championship, I'm also destroying my city. So it's interesting that we're seeing kind of this uprising. Now, we also kind of know, because of the things I was saying about apathy and all that stuff, that a lot of these people that we're seeing do all this stuff is kind of like an outlier sect of American people. It's not like my neighbor is going and burning down Teslas. It's like some dude who has been doing this for a while, and one of those type of people. Like, and that's what it comes down to, is the fact that, like, I don't think this has definitely reached a point where the American people are going to be like out here bringing down Teslas. When I say the American people, I mean the general populace, like the average Joe, the person that you see driving their car to work every single day. That person is the person that you really need to actually go do something when it comes to like causing a revolution and doing all this stuff. Like, the outliers are only going to be labeled as such, and they'll be labeled as, you know, domestic terrorists or whoever, and that's only going to create more divide, et cetera, so forth. In other words, I don't think that what's happening with Tesla right now in terms of people destroying these cars and doing all this stuff is actually productive. I think it's counterintuitive in the grand scheme of what the message is trying to be. But with all these happenings, the stock is dropping like crazy. I think it dropped something like 20% over the last week and a half. But, you know, Elon finagled some money and moved some stuff around, and it skyrocketed like 15%. I might be wrong, 12% over the last couple of days. So, you know, that's kind of like how it is in terms of just, these billionaires are going to find ways to continue to be billionaires. They're not going to tank it all. Like, what's crazy about it is that the people were saying that if Tesla had reached a certain point in terms of valuation, that it may have forced Elon Musk to sell his X company, or Twitter, or wherever you want to call it. And that's interesting to me, because it kind of shows how fragile these structures are, in terms of, if you pull away the rug, i.e. the people who are using these structures in terms of like Twitter and Amazon and Facebook and all these companies that we're saying is becoming an oligarchy, if we just stop using them and the rug gets pulled out and the valuation goes down, they're no longer worth what they're worth. Because the thing about it is that what people get confused about, or not even confused about, or maybe they just don't accept, is that when you hear that Elon Musk is worth $300 billion, it's not like he has $300 billion in the bank. If you go check his bank account, it's not going to say $300 billion, right? It's the valuation of his stock, his companies, his business, et cetera, so forth, assets, et cetera, so forth. Particularly to get that high valuation comes down to his big companies, you know, SpaceX, Tesla, et cetera, so forth. And we as people are the ones who support this. Now, SpaceX is a little different conversation, because that's more like I have no effect on SpaceX. Me buying a cheeseburger at the mall is not going to affect SpaceX. But with like Tesla or even PayPal, companies that Elon Musk has handed, if you just stop using them on a grand scale, it does affect his pocket at the end of the day. So that's just a pro tip for you trying to be all anti-government out there. Stop using his stuff. Stop using their stuff. Whoever you're trying to be anti-government against. Anyways, I don't want to spend too much time talking about Elon Musk or talking about Tesla. Like I said, this is not a political podcast. But like I said, I'm trying to talk about the news of the day, the news of the week, if I can get on this on a weekly basis, and the things that are important to me, but also things that you might learn about, which is why I was like, well, I could start with Tesla and go on a 10-minute rant about Tesla, but let's end the episode with Tesla instead, because that way I could talk about some fun stuff like Dr. Doom and ASAP Rocky and stuff like that, and have some fun times in the show instead of talking about all the depressing, sad stuff that's going on in our world. But I digress. Anyways, thank you guys for watching the Jaron Ikner Show. If you are watching this episode, if you got this long, please, gotten this far in this episode, please like, subscribe, share, tell your friends. If you see the clips, because we're going to be clipping this up, share the clip that makes sense to you, that you like, so I can get more of that sweet, sweet algorithm love and respect. I appreciate you guys watching. We'll be back again, hopefully next week, with a bunch more. A lot of stuff has happened that I didn't talk about for sure. I definitely was like, well, I'm just going to pick some fun stuff, get back into it. But we'll be back again next week with another episode. So please subscribe, please like, and we'll see you guys soon. Also, if you're watching this on the replay, you're watching this on the Jaron Ikner channel or on Facebook, make sure you're following us, because we're always posting stuff over here. So I'm out. Y'all take care. Peace out.